Okay, I'd like to welcome Emily Platt to Dad Support. Hello there. How are you going?
Hi, good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, very well. Thank you for joining us. I'd love to know, I'm asking you today about your PhD on parental alienation. As an
Yeah.
overview, would you like to tell us what you're doing, please?
Yeah, so I suppose an overview of the PhD itself is I'm looking mainly at how can we start going about trying to identify it, because there isn't really much out there at the moment, other than a few scales and stuff like that. But it has kind of evolved into looking at other things as well, and things that haven't been looked at before, in terms of parental alienation and people that have experienced it. So I'm also starting to look at those differences between people that have experienced like abuse or harm in childhood versus those who have experienced alienation, and where kind of things differ there. And I do think that will lead on to helping identify it by identifying those distinguishing features.
Terrific. And what university are you at, and what's the qualification that you're studying?
It's Birmingham City University in the UK, and it will be for my PhD. So I'll be a doctor by the end. Fingers crossed.
Terrific. Okay. And have you got a definition of parental alienation?
um, I try to avoid defining it at the moment, to be honest, because there isn't an academic definition. So especially within like my research within my PhD, I've tried to avoid it because I don't want to deter people from participating in
Mm,
it, especially when we don't have like a consistent definition that everybody's kind of agreed on, if that makes sense.
mm, mm. Um, so who are the people that you want to um, participate in this research?
So within my current part of the PhD, the current data collection, it's two groups of people. So people that have experienced alienation in childhood. So um, alienated children, but you still do need to be over age of 18 to participate at the moment, though. As well as my other group is looking at people that have experienced harm, so any sort of physical, emotional, sexual maltreatment before the age of 18, but within that group they've not experienced alienation.
Mm. I wonder if these people, because they'll be adults to participate,
Yeah.
I wonder how many people are aware that they've experienced parental alienation. Uh, you know,
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I have, as part of my first stage of data collection within the PhD, advertised not didn't advertise to people that experienced alienation, and the aim was to see whether we came across
mm,
people that had experienced alienating behaviours that weren't aware of alienation itself. And then that's kind of moved on to looking for people that I suppose are aware that they have experienced alienation,
mm,
and again looking for those differences between people that have experienced harm in childhood, and seeing if we can use that to help distinguish between the two.
mm. I guess there'd be psychologists out there that could support you finding the right participants. Is that possible?
It's definitely possible. It just very much depends who it reaches. I suppose because I'm still a student, I don't necessarily have all of those connections as a practicing psychologist would have,
Mm,
unfortunately. So it is definitely trying to just get it out there so people know that I am collecting data to try and get reach the people that do want to participate.
mm. And how many participants are you hoping to have? As many as possible?
It
Is there
is,
a
it is
minimum?
really as many as possible, because we're trying to look at differences between groups of people, and we're going to potentially make generalizations between those groups, as many as possible to be able to make those generalizations. If with a smaller sample, we wouldn't necessarily be able to infer that this is a common characteristic within those groups. So yeah, like as many as people.
Is there a minimum number of participants you need for the data to be considered relevant and professional, if you like?
I think there's no minimum, because anything will be useful.
Mm.
Because it can be then used by other researchers and myself in the future, to guide further research. So especially within alienation, where although the volume of research is growing, we still don't have as much as other areas.
Mm.
Um, Psychology, I think everything is useful. It just alters what sort of conclusions you can draw from it, I think, depending on the amount of people you end up having participate.
Mm. Yeah. What do you hope to achieve from the submission of the paper?
Me personally, I think it's I suppose adding a contribution to the field itself, and potentially something being useful, I suppose, to the family court system, in helping like psychologists, and assessors and social workers identify alienation and give us a better idea of children, distinguishing between children that have experienced alienation versus those that are experiencing genuine harm.
Mm.
Um, so I suppose that real world aspect, but also the academic side of contributing to the field, and hopefully producing something that's useful to other researchers.
And would the paper be published publicly, or is it kept in the professional world only? Where does it get published?
So it will, I will submit it to journals. So it would be published publicly, eventually. It's up to once the journals have taken it on, it's up to them whether they charge for people to be able to view it. Unfortunately, it's out of our hands. We don't get any of the money if they do charge.
Mm.
But it will primarily also be put together as part of my PhD thesis, which would be marked. And that'd be quite a big document. So in terms of publishing, it would be broken down into the different parts of data collection I've done, and submitting to journals, and have fingers crossed they'll approve publishing.
Do you do that, or does the university do that on your behalf?
I do that, so
Mm.
it's an additional an additional bit of work on my side.
Yeah, certainly. And is there a primary journal that you would love to be published in? Is there something that you would like to be that would be um, a big win for you personally?
I don't think so. I think any sort of publishing is always a win, because it can be quite tough to get it through. I did manage to publish my undergraduate dissertation, and we shortened that and managed to get that published. But there was actually quite a lot of kickback from journals because of the topic. So I had some rejections because people didn't agree with terminology and things like that. So I think in this sort of area at the moment, trying to get it just out there in general is a big win itself.
Are you talking about the topic parental alienation is
Yes.
um, a challenging topic, if you like? Is it the
Yeah.
term people don't like? Because I know from my experience in the family court here in Australia, um, I was advised at one point that the term wasn't um, looked on upon as a favourable term. So,
Yeah,
mm,
definitely the term. I mean, and I suppose it's what people associate with the term,
mm,
though. So I think it's very individual. So there was a few journals that just said we don't agree that it's a scientific field, and therefore we won't publish this.
mm,
Um, but in the end, it was the British Psychological Society that did publish. So I think it kind of shows we're going somewhere. It's just that there will always be some people that don't agree.
mm. I guess it takes time for new terminology and concepts to get into the mainstream.
Yeah, definitely.
And why did you choose this topic for your PhD, Emily?
Um, And initially, when I first started research, I've researched alienation since my undergraduate degree. So I did my undergraduate dissertation, my master's dissertation, and then that's kind of evolved into what I wanted to do for the PhD as well. But it was initially my dad who came across the term, because I have a younger half sister, that he was going through a custody battle. Um, in regards to visitation rights with my half sister, and he believed, and we still do believe, that she is alienated from us. So it initially stemmed from a personal experience. That's how we kind of came across the term.
Mm.
But since then, it has grown into a professional curiosity. Isn't the right word? Hmm.
But a personal experience brought you to
Yeah,
this topic. Yes.
yeah, it's definitely a personal experience that brought me to the topic, and then I've continued with it because I think it is a really important topic to research as well.
Mm. It's interesting because you'll be potentially what you learn through all this process will be adding value to the professional world out there, but also for the people who are alienated. The more people have become aware of the term, because I do
Yeah,
believe there's probably a lot of kids out there and adults who've been through it and they don't even realize, that's what I
yeah.
went through. So you're doing, I think you're doing a lot of good work there. So what's the time frame and how do people get in touch with you? I'll certainly put links in below. So
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment, I have approval to collect data till November. It's that's likely to be extended depending on how many people I've reached by that point. In terms of taking part, it is just I've got links to the surveys that I can send across to you that you can include in the video. In terms of publishing or anything being public, I will be taking a bit of a break from sort of mid-November because I'm expecting a baby. So
congratulations.
so that's just going to delay things a little bit. And then I'm due to kind of finish the PhD within 1 to 2 years, really. So fingers crossed it would be out in the public domain before I finish the PhD. But that's the sort of timescales I'm looking at for finishing everything.
Certainly, you got your hands full there. Well, that's
Yeah.
exciting. So congratulations. Okay,
Thank you.
well, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else you need to tell us about
No,
process or anything?
no.
Terrific. Okay, well, thanks, Emily. We'll put the links in below. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming and chatting with us. So we'll certainly try and get the right participants for you, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, no worries.